Hello, hello, dear teachers. I'm back again, like a bad penny. All right. I guess everybody has had the opportunity to go through the art integration video. That was a pretty general video spanning across all subjects. It could be relevant to anything. It was about information regarding art integration or integration of art in the learning process, or AIL as we call it, art integrated learning. Today's session, or the tutorial for today, is from an example from class 12 main reader Flamingo, and I'm going to attempt an AIL sample via a particular chapter, and the chapter is the lesson 3, Deep Water. So I'm going to do this in 3 parts. And today, in this session, it's going to be part 1, right? Because we need time for it to seep in. I cannot do an information overload. It gets a little problematic, troublesome, okay, right? So let's proceed. So this is Deep Water, part 1, all right? Okay. Now, when we think of deep water, we know of the lesson and we know what it is as teachers. We've been doing it for quite a while. Just to remember, let me get the pointer on here for you. Yes, just to remember that art integrated learning can be implemented in classroom through the following 2 components. Remember, I had, done this in the previous session. So what is it that we would be using this time? We would be using ice-breaking activity to introduce a topic. And like I had mentioned in the previous video, I'll just repeat it once again here for teachers of English specifically. Now, with reference to deep water, right? Now, when we think of deep water, I, as a teacher, would be comfortable sort of dividing it into 3 chunks, okay? The first chunk where we talk about the fear and what the feelings are, what caused it, etc. Right up to the time when he was sort of dumped into the pool. The second is when he was in there, what was it that he experienced, right? All the experiences, the feelings, whether it was the heartbeat, whether it was literally a feeling of being lost or letting go of any control, that would be the second part. And the third part was how he overcame it. We are talking about William Douglas. So how he overcame it, right? So as far as I am concerned, this chapter lends itself to 3 different chunks. And I'm going to attempt AIL, as this says, to introduce each chunk, which I would call a topic. So every day when I go to my class, in 3 different days, it would be a different chunk that I'm addressing, right? So the first chunk, according to me, is about fear and reasons for fear. There was a reason why that fear was in his head already, and being dumped into the pool just added to it, right? So the first chunk, before I begin telling the kids to start reading the first chunk, a certain part, I would have to plan, right? I would have to list it in my plan, what I'm planning to do. So the idea is that we would do something like this. Our objectives need to be very clear. Only then we can, sort of make use of AIL. It cannot just be a fun activity. There has to be a purpose as far as that is concerned, because the AIL, let's not forget the L part. The L part is learning. So I would say that my teaching periods are 40 minutes approximately. You could change that. So there are 2 aspects here, the introduction, okay, the introduction, which is where I'll be using my AIL, and then I go on with the teaching. As a facilitator, I go on with the teaching of what the portion of the chapter that I want them to be familiar with is, right? So the learning objectives here would be classifying some types of fear and inferring possible reasons for them. That is what I feel I would like to use AIL in, that they would be able to classify some types of fear and infer the possible reasons. Okay. And the second one is that they would identify the feelings that are associated with fear. Why do I want to do this through art? Is because then I would help them internalize or experience these things so that when they read this portion, they can identify pat, just bang on point. They would understand all that teacher talk time that would go into explaining the whys, hows, etc. That's all set. They would discover it themselves through art integrated learning, right? So let's go on to see how one can go about it. Now, I'll be showing you 2, 3 different ways. You can choose either. You can choose similar kinds. I'm sure you're extremely creative. This is just my way of doing it. I'm sure you can come up with 100 other better ways, right? So the art that I would integrate would be drawings, paintings, sketches, cartoons, illustrations. I would even like to use the bhavas, or the bhav as we call it, or facial expression. So if I'm using it from the dance factor, it would be the bhav, or the theater would be the facial expressions. I could even use some murals. So I'll be showing you examples of each, right? Now, as a teacher, my resource needs to be ready. So I would have them with me. Now, when I begin, I would first like to show them this, okay, and this. And I would say, could you recognize the expressions, preferably this? First, what is the art form? They would definitely recognize it as a dance, Kathakali, okay? Then I would say, do all these expressions look the same? And they're likely to say no, because it's very obvious. So then I would say, could you recognize anger? I could probably, take this a picture to paint and number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the navarasas. I'm sure they'll reach there, they'll talk about it, right? So I would probably say, could you sort of show me anger, or could you show me happiness, or something like that? And then for a clearer aspect, I would show them something like this, and then say, okay, this is a dancer. Look at her expressions or the bhavs that you can see here. Could you identify, for example, what do you think this is? So this is astonishment very clearly, right? What about this, right? And for everything they recognize, I would definitely, ask them to see if they can, do it in pairs and quiz the other person, see if the answers are correct or not. And then I show them a clearer picture, tell them to have a clearer look at it. And then I, as a teacher, stand in front of the class, keeping this on the smart board, or, giving them a handout with one little picture, depends what kind of classroom you're catering to. And then I would probably say, okay, anger. And then I would look at everybody's faces. All right. Now, if I'm doing it in a virtual classroom, which is what the current situation is, I would probably say roll number 6, 8, 20, 24, and 28. Could you switch on your videos? Everybody else switch off your videos. And then I would say, okay, anger for you. And then, suddenly they have to express anger or fear. Okay, because I know that's my key. So I will include a fear. Okay, and then maybe something simpler like happiness, or valor, or astonishment, anything. Disgust is another favorite of mine. So that's like a great opening to expressions and feelings. I've used certain art forms, right? Now, what could be another side to this? I would probably say, if I want to, sort of finish with this and get them to read, and then I would say, okay, tomorrow when you come back, I'd like the following done. You can choose. So I'd show them something like this. All right. Now, I, as a teacher, am showing it to them. And because I've already done an activity, I would say, I would want Navrasa selfies. Could you show me those, please? Navrasa selfies, okay? So that's one way of doing it. A sketch or cartoon, that's another way. Computer graphics or paintings, it's entirely up to them what they want to do. Do they want to go to the paint element of Microsoft, and do they want to sort of arrange? What is this? So this is like a suggestive kind of a drawing or a painting. For example, this is valor. This is definitely fear. Okay, so this is fear. This is anger, probably, right? So it depends. What is it that they want to use to represent it? That's another way. Face painting is another way. They could do it. See, it's being done over here. Face painting is another way that they could do. So they could come back the next day with this. We could talk about it the first 5 minutes, right? They needn't paint their faces and come to school. They could just simply click themselves after they've done it, okay, and show it to everybody. So that's one way of going about it. Another way which I feel would work very well is discussion through stimulants, right? So discussion in groups. Now, this is where the thinking really starts happening. Now, you've layered it. You've done the first portion. You've done the barbs. You've done, a lot of expressions. You've talked about the general things. You've talked about fear. You could also say that when you make those expressions, you are thinking those feelings, right? So you could ask a couple of students as to, when you made the expression for fear, what were you thinking of, right? Why were you thinking of that? Did something happen? Have you seen a movie, a picture, etc., which you recalled? It might be a good time to talk about Harry Potter and the Bogart and, those kind of things. So for discussions, we could begin with another art form. It's a very, show them something like this and start asking them questions like this. Based on the colors, what elements of nature can you see? Discuss what this popular painting suggests to you. Okay, which is the most prominent feeling that the person in this painting is expressing? Okay, this, or this. I'm sure they'll come to anxiety and fear, right? What about the painting makes you say so? So why this choice? You're making them talk to you. You're asking them to discuss in groups. Once you've shown them all the questions, what do you think might have happened for such an expression to have taken place, right? To be shown. Now, you could show them all the questions and tell them to launch a discussion in the groups while you are monitoring, the discussions. And then maybe you could ask one or two odd groups to come up with certain answers and see if the rest of the class agrees. Based on what you think might have happened, would you have found it fearful? If you're saying that this is what has caused anxiety and fear, would you have found it fearful? Why not? Remember, you haven't yet started the chapter at all, right? Now, this is a very popular work of art. It's by a Norwegian artist, Edvard Munch. It's called The Scream, and it was painted in 1898, please. Yeah, but it's extremely popular, right? So after they've done this, you could probably share a bit of information as to what actually made the artist paint this. It might just surprise them, right? So that's one way of going about it. If you don't want to use this piece of art, so what are we doing? We are talking about fear. Anything that inspires fear, right? So that's one way of doing it. This is art integrated learning. I want to open up the topic of fear and its causes with my children. I could use any of these things, right? I could use this. These are murals. It's called the fear head. Look at this. This is on the wall. On the wall. Can you see the doors, etc.? These are all on the walls. It's called the fear head. Tell them, why do you think it's called the fear head? What is the artist trying to say? What are these? Are these monsters? What's happening with this girl? Okay. And then show them something like this. This is also a mural. It's from ResearchGate. It's called the fear of displacement. Imagine, we've just experienced the situation with the migrant workers and so on. So displacement is something. Look at this. Okay, so the fear of displacement. All right, that could be one. Then we move on to a discussion in pairs. Now, the choice is yours, whatever you want to do. We are still on fear and what we want them to talk about fear and so on, right? So this could be an option. Show them something like this. Ask them what it suggests. What is this person experiencing? It's very clear. They'll say fear. They'll say fear. What is a person fearing? So a lot of people say ghosts. So is it just ghosts? Can you not see the snakes, the bees, the spiders, the clown? These are all fears. Somebody mentioned fear of falling down as well, by the way. So yeah, that's great. So what are the kind of questions I would like to ask? I'd show these and I'd say, what is common to all the pictures? What is common to all the pictures? Wait for an answer. What are the types of fear shown in these pictures? So this is fear of the dark, somebody said. Somebody said fear of closed spaces, fear of falling down, of heights. Okay, so great. What could have been the reason for these fears in the people shown? So now they'll talk. Is there a story behind it? Why are they fearing it? What about this person? Why does closed, some people find it problematic to be in a lift, I being one of them. Yeah, so find it very, you feel that the walls are closing in on you. Now, I don't know what it was. Maybe because I found myself shut in the washroom of a train when I was very, very young. And so I don't know really. So that's one, right? And then you could ask them, do you think that the emotions or the feelings experienced by all these people is the same? Or do you think there is a variation? What are the similarities of the feelings that they are experiencing? So you're making the child sort of think, go back on any kind of similar stimulus that they might have had, and I'm sure they have had, okay, to identify with this concept, abstract concept of fear, right? What is the feeling they all are experiencing? So you choose the kind of questions you want. And so we are sort of nudging them to think about fear. Look at this one. We're still continuing, right? So those were illustrations. This is like a more of a cartoon, right? Cartoon drawing. So we would say, okay, now look at this one. Look at this. So what are my questions for each? Discuss what is shown in picture 1. It's certainly not a fear of snakes or ghosts or falling. What is this fear? I'm sure they'll come up with the fact that it's either the fear of speaking in public or stage fear. Why is the girl hiding? What do you think she's feeling? What do you think is the story behind her fear? So creative thinking as well. All coming from this one little piece of art that you've shown them, okay? Talk about this. Look at this. These are computer graphics, I think, right? So what does picture 2 show? What do you think orange is feeling? So fear of social isolation, really? How do you think this fear impacts orange's life? So we are building some kind of empathy also and awareness side by side, right? And we are still with fear. Please do not attempt to use all of what I've shown you. You could use one of these things, right? Okay. And then you have this one. What fear does picture 3 show? What does such a fear make a person feel and do? So this is FOMO, fear of missing out, very relevant in current context. Children don't want to let go, right, of their social media platforms. Okay, are these fears different from the fears of closed spaces, heights, etc.? Are these different kinds of fears? Or would you say that no, at the end of the day, the feeling is pretty much the same, right? So now you have to stimulate the child's thinking about this, right? Let's move on. Then we show them our final piece, because that's where we want to lead them. So this is a Peiji world, all right? And what does this picture show? It's definitely a painting. What does this picture show? What kind of water body is this? Why do you say so? So it's definitely not a pool. So they'll figure out, would you call this a whirlpool? Can you say that, it's calm waters or torrid waters? What makes you say? Make them observe. I mean, you're using a piece of art, right? Okay, where all can such an episode happen? So drowning, where all can such an episode happen? So they'll tell you They will definitely mention a swimming pool. Okay, what is likely to be the cause for such an occurrence at these different places? So they'd probably say someone doesn't know swimming, someone got a cramp, the lifeguard was busy or negligent or whatever it might be. Somebody got pushed, somebody slipped, could be anything, right? How would such an experience impact the person if he or she survives? Let them now imagine all of this. When they answer all of this, you are literally connecting it to the chapter, aren't you? Because this is exactly what young Douglas experienced, right? Would you call a person with such a fear a coward? So they would say that, yes, this person would, be scared of water. So you would say, would you call such a person a coward? Why not? Also validating that, listen, if you have fears, it's okay. You can always overcome, which is where we lead them eventually, right? So that's another way of going about it. And then I would say participate and create. So now I've shown them so much of art. So now I would say, teacher, ask the student groups to give their own fear a form on paper. Very quickly, roughly. Use one color or many. Even simple stick figures are great. Any form that they want to give. And then, you know, each group is to cut out their projections, whatever they have drawn, and then stick it all together. Okay, compile as one unit and give finishing touches. Any outline or anything, that is required. Now, teacher engages student in a gallery walk. So every group has sort of kept their artwork on their benches, and everybody just takes a trip around the classroom, and that's it. This is, you are taking in knowledge for times to come. It is not just limited to your virtual classroom. So hence walk around, right? So now what have you taught them from this? What have they learned from this particular activity? They've learned that, hey, everybody has one fear or the other. And it's okay to have a fear. It's okay to talk about it. If you talk about it, you feel that you're not the only one, right? And you are bigger than your fear, right? So all of this. Finally, when this is done, then you ask them to read the planned portion. So in 40 minutes, I reckon that I would probably spend 20 minutes doing my introductory AIL and spend another 15 minutes, because it's just a very small chunk. It's not much. It's not much. Okay. It's just the initial couple of 3 paragraphs or so. Once they've read it, you can do your thing, the magic that you do in the classroom, teaching this as usual. But I promise you, once you have taken them through this process of art integrated learning, it's going to be magical the way they perceive and can empathize with young Douglas's situation, right? And then what is going to be my follow-up in the last couple of minutes? I would probably say, what color do you think of when you visualize fear? What color? Some people would say red, some would say black. Now, I'm sure you're thinking too. When I'm saying this, you're thinking too. If fear were an animal, which one would it be and why? So this is like a fun follow-up. It's like a fun follow-up. It's like, giving a closure, because you've done so much. Now you want them to express, or you want them to write, or whatever suits their fancy, right? With your partner, share one such childhood experience that has instilled fear in you. So please don't make it public. They might not be comfortable, so they could talk to it with you. You silently monitor as you go around the class, and I guess that should do it. Your 45 minutes are fruitfully taken care of. You've done AIL, you've listed the art that you have used it as an icebreaker activity, you have helped them experience, you've even helped them project it if they are going to engage in some kind of artwork there in your presence, and then they read, and that's just about it. All right. Yeah. And that would be all. So don't forget that when we come up next time with the next tutorial session, I'm going to be showing the part 2, that the second chunk, the feelings that he feels via art integrated learning. Yeah. And on that note, stay safe, stay empowered, and keep rocking.